Looking for a degree program that rewards you for what you already know? At WGU, all of our bachelor's and master's programs are competency-based, allowing you to progress at your own pace. Washingtonians know how valuable time and money are, and so do we. At WGU, your hard work and experience can help you finish your degree faster and for less. Join a community of driven professionals from across the DMV who are unlocking new career opportunities today. See how your knowledge can give you an edge at wgu.edu.
Good afternoon. Getting right down to serious business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson at 3 and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. It's Mottek On Money, live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com and your on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple iTunes, YouTube, all of your favorite podcast platforms. Nervous week in the financial markets, a holiday-shortened week coming off of the Juneteenth holiday yesterday. All this following the Israeli strikes over the past week aimed at wiping out Iran's nuclear program. Iran has since launched missile strikes on Israeli cities. We continue to monitor all of the latest headlines out of the Middle East. Today we saw a mixed finish for the stock market, with the Dow eking out a closing gain of 35 points, the S&P 500 down 13, and the Nasdaq slipping 99. The volatility index today moving higher by 2%. The price of oil has moved higher this week. Right now it's $75 a barrel in New York, up around $76 a barrel in London. Gold has been moving near its record high, pulling back a bit today, down about $24 at $3,384 and change. In all this, cryptos have had a wild ride, too. Right now, Bitcoin down about 200 at 103,140. Stocks ending the day mixed today following all these developments. Also, a Fed governor put out the idea of the possibility of interest rate cuts by July. President Trump, meanwhile, putting off a decision on whether he would authorize a U.S. strike in Iran. This as more U.S. military assets head toward the Middle East. Chip stocks today taking a hit on a report in the Wall Street Journal indicating the U.S. wants to revoke waivers from top semiconductor manufacturers used for accessing U.S. technology in China. NVIDIA pulled back today by about 1%. Meanwhile, the president has introduced a self-imposed 2-week time limit on deciding whether to enter the Middle East conflict. He delivered a message today relayed by the White House press secretary. The move adding another layer of uncertainty to an already cautious market. We'll be discussing what's happening in the Middle East coming up in just a moment with Steve Forbes. Also, Lisa Daftari, editor of the Foreign Desk, Middle East expert, will also be joining us live later this hour. Of course, oil markets very much in focus, closing out its third week of gains. The investors awaiting the president's decision on whether the U.S. would directly intervene in the Israel-Iran conflict. Treasury yields, turning to the bond market now, also holding relatively steady this week, after President Trump said he will decide within 2 weeks whether the U.S. military will get directly involved in Israel's fighting with Iran. The head of the IDF chief of staff said that Israelis must prepare for a prolonged campaign against Iran to eliminate a threat of this magnitude, in his words, indicating that a quick end to the campaign was unlikely. He said Israel launched its opening attack on Iran, knowing that Iran possessed about 2,500 surface-to-surface missiles with a high production rate such that within approximately 2 years they were expected to possess around 8,000 missiles. We're also watching what's happening in the car business, nervousness in the Middle East, and the price of oil. Will $8 a gallon gasoline be something we'll see anytime soon here in California? We'll talk about that in the car business later this hour with our go-to car expert, Lauren Finks. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, and the whole works now. Joining us live, I'm honored to say we have Steve Forbes, chairman of Forbes Media, which includes Forbes magazine, author of numerous books. His latest is Inflation, What It Is, Why It Is Bad, and How to Fix It, former Republican presidential candidate. And most importantly, we're grateful to say a very long-time guest on this program. Steve Forbes, thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon.
Good to be with you, Frank. Quite a week we've had.
Certainly, it's hard to believe it's just been a week since Israel struck to wipe out Iran's nuclear program. Certainly that is big news, and we haven't talked since then. Give us your reaction to this big news over the past week.
Well, I think it was very clear to the Israelis that they had to take action, that Iran was coming very close to, within a short period of time, of possessing anywhere from 9 to 15 nuclear bombs. You mentioned earlier the missiles that they have that could deliver those nuclear devices in a few months. and the Israelis decided that things had gone far enough. And what is amazing is that how extensive Iran's nuclear facilities have become, including the Fordo one that everyone's talking about, buried 300 feet under a mountain. How did all this take place and nothing being done to stop it? Iran has made very clear what its intentions are with Israel and with everyone else. So the Israelis felt they had to move, but this obviously it's quite an undertaking to do it in. And the question is, when and will President Trump move to take out that Fordo facility that's buried in a mountain?
On the Air Live with Steve Forbes, and the financial market reaction, especially in the oil market, wasn't as dramatic as many people expected, with oil hovering around $75 a barrel now. It certainly did tick higher over the past week, and awaiting the next big move on this chessboard here. What do you see ahead for the price of oil and for the financial markets in the face of all this?
Well, I think even though Iran's a major producer of oil, potentially up to 3 million barrels a day, they're much lower than that now because of the sanctions and everything else. But I think one reason the markets haven't gone bonkers as they've had in the past, Frank, is precisely because the Saudi Arabians don't want Iran to possess a nuclear bomb. And so I think they're increasing their output, which they can. The U.S. has taken the foot off the neck of our energy production, and also the global economy. You're not seeing much demand there, if you had a booming global economy, which we don't. So all those factors have come in, and unlike what happened in 1990-91 when we had the first Iraq war, the situation is very different today.
On the Air Live with Steve Forbes, and so the market, the stock market held up pretty well in the face of all this too, with the Israeli-Iran conflict, interest rate worries, tariffs, of course, also very much part of the conversation here. What do you see ahead for the markets here now, given even more uncertainty that we've been talking about?
Well, I think the markets have really been treading water, and U.S. markets this year haven't done as well, surprisingly, as most markets around the world, including, amazingly, the European markets. So until we get resolution of the big, beautiful tax bill, what's actually going to be in that, the tariff situation, how is that going to be resolved, especially as we have some deadlines coming up, and, of course, what's going to happen in the Middle East. And then after that, which has gotten no attention recently because of what's happening in the Middle East, is what's going to happen with Ukraine. Putin has made it very clear, and I hope the president has grasped it, that Putin thinks he can win this war, that he's just going to grind them out, even if it takes hundreds of thousands of more casualties, and get control of Ukraine, which would be a blow to the security of Europe. So a lot of questions out there, but until we get something definitive, I think the markets are just going to tread water. They may go up or down for a new daily news headline, but they're not going to take a firm direction until they know what the rules of the road are and what the situation is internationally.
And more drama in Washington over this big, beautiful bill. Grover Norquist, the head of Americans for Tax Reform, spoke in Los Angeles last night at a beautiful reception the LA Taxpayers Association had organized, and we heard him give his assessment. What is your assessment of how this big, beautiful bill is coming together or not coming together in the Senate and what lies ahead?
Well, the only question is, when will they pass a big, beautiful bill? But they have to pass it, the Republicans know, because otherwise that'll be political. They'd be signing their political death warrants next year, because you'd have a bad economy with a massive tax increase hitting people, including in California, a typical household, $3,000 or $4,000 of new taxes, not what people need right now. So they will pass a bill. The question is, what's going to be in it? And this is where I hope they take the best of both of the House bills, including in terms of a reform of food stamps, reform of Medicaid, where if you want the benefits and you're able and you don't have dependents, you have to do 20 hours of work a week, and stopping the big scam in Medicaid that California pioneered years ago, and Congress thought once they'd outlawed it, where they play games of pretending to tax hospitals and then reimburse them manyfold, and end up having Washington give them a lot of extra money. And I hope they stop that practice, as I think they will. But the real big question, Frank, is are they going to have real cuts in personal income taxes? It's good to renew what we had in 2017. That's essential. But we need big new tax cuts because we do have those tariffs out there. And as Warren Buffett said, the tooth fairy does not pay the tariffs. Consumers end up paying the tariff one way or the other. So we need something to counteract these sales taxes. That's what a tariff is. And so I hope they strengthen the bill in the weeks ahead. I don't see how they're going to get it done by the 4th of July, but maybe they will. But in the meantime, they're going to have bills after that to strengthen tax cuts because the economy is going to need it. It's got some real headwinds out there.
On the Air Live with Steve Forbes, chairman of Forbes Media, and who also wrote the book on inflation, by the way, Inflation, What It Is, Why It Is Bad, and How to Fix It. Are you surprised that the latest readings we've been getting on inflation have been tame, coming in below expectations, and in the face of the tariffs that are already in place? What do you see ahead on the inflation front?
Well, a lot of the tariffs have been, you might say, eaten by providers. You remember when the inflation came in 2022, big time. Initially, merchants and sellers ate some of the price increases, hoping that somehow their costs would go down. When that didn't happen, the prices went up. You got a little taste of that a few weeks ago when Walmart let the cat out of the bag and saying if these things go in, they're going to have to raise prices. Then they had to backtrack from it for political reasons. But so that's going to raise prices. But I think what's going to happen on the tariffs is the president's made it clear he wants a 10% base tariff. And I think the courts are going to overthrow that, saying only Congress can enact a permanent tax increase. So, but in the meantime, it's going to be a source of uncertainty. And then we have a Federal Reserve that still believes prosperity causes inflation. And they're going to still try to keep the economy, they're going to keep interest rates artificially high. And right now, the Fed pays banks almost 4.5%, 4.4% on reserves, bank reserves, which the banks have plenty of, which means that money isn't being put out in the economy to work. So what the Fed should do is cut what the interest rates they pay on reserves and cut them down to, say, instead of 4.5% or 4.4, do it 2.4. This is a real deadweight on bank lending. And so the Fed is going to be a problem in the future.
Very interesting. On the Air Live with Steve Forbes. With all this concern still about tariffs and inflation, we have seen the price of gold move up about 30% this year. Of course, also on the geopolitical worries. And crypto's held up pretty well. Bitcoin right now at 103,000 off its record high we saw just a month or two ago now of 112,000. And today the Senate passed a bill, or this week the Senate passed a bill that would establish a federal framework for a dollar-backed cryptocurrency known as stable coins. This Genius Act still needs the okay of the House and President Trump, but there's some movement on that front. On this program, we speak to the biggest fans of crypto as well as the harshest critics. So what are your thoughts about what's been happening in the crypto space?
Well, obviously, people are excited about it. A lot of people are excited about it. And also, I think the price, one reason why you've seen Bitcoin go up so much in recent times is worries about the dollar. The dollar has been weak, as you know, even though it hasn't, normally in a time of crisis, the dollar would strengthen, but it really hasn't. You look at other currencies, even the British pound, the dollar's been weak against, which is a surprise. So in terms of the crypto world, I think what people are going to be waiting for in the months and years, I don't think it'll be years, is inventing a cryptocurrency or currencies that you can use for transactions. And that means the cryptocurrency has to have a stable value. One of the things about Bitcoin is you may think it's a great way to preserve your wealth or get rich quick, but you would never take a mortgage out in Bitcoin. You'd never do a long-term contract or even a 6-month or 12-month contract in Bitcoin. You take a mortgage out for, say, $500,000 in Bitcoin, and 3 years, you may find you owe the bank $5 million. So they've got to stabilize the value. So Bitcoin will never be a money, but I think technology is coming along where you'll see cryptos start to be used for transactions, and then you really want to see governments go crazy when they see a threat to their monopoly on money. That's going to happen with cryptos.
Speaking of money, Elon Musk still way at the top of your list, the Forbes billionaires list at, let me see here, $342 billion. Mark Zuckerberg with his new glasses today at $216 billion. Jeff Bezos, number 3 at $215. Larry Ellison at $192. And Bernard Arnault, the owner of Louis Vuitton and family, $178 billion here at the moment. Looks like the drama continues between Elon Musk and the White House after his departure from the government for the time being. What are your thoughts about how that drama has played out?
Well, I think when you have two very strong personalities, and you have Elon Musk, who's accustomed to doing things his own way, there was bound to be tension. But I think what he did set an example of, even though they're going to refine some of the things he did in terms of cuts and things like that, what he exposed about how little we really know where the money goes in government. With all these organizations getting money and then making grants to other organizations, and the supposed beneficiaries get very little, that I think is going to set the stage for more reforms in the future. And the big thing what he's done is on regulations, which have killed manufacturing in the last 25 years. Those are starting to be peeled back, including, imagine, allowing people to buy the car they want, instead of Governor Newsom and others saying you must buy EVs even if you don't want them too bad, we're going to force you on it. One reason why, just to be political, but I'll do it. I understand this is me, not you talking. That's one reason why I don't think Governor Newsom's going to be taking the oath of office in Washington on January 20th, 2029. Just for the record.
On your live with Steve Forbes, and in the meantime, I'm glad you mentioned California, because obviously LA has taken the spotlight recently, and Governor Newsom was defeated yesterday in his challenge to President Trump nationalizing the California National Guard. Given the current situation here and ongoing, what's your reaction to what's been happening here in LA? What are your impressions?
Well, I think the riots had to be dealt with. You may not have been old enough to remember the riots in the early 90s after a Rodney King individual who was died in the hands of the police, set off deadly riots, people killed, and the then President George H.W. Bush sent in far more National Guard and Marines to try to restore order. But I think what you're going to see happening in the weeks and months ahead is that the whole thing on immigration, deportations, is going to be a lot more targeted and laser-like. They're going against the gangsters, and they're apparently getting a good idea of who these bad characters are. Those deportations will continue. But the president said today that, we have to be very careful with agriculture. And they're also going to have to be careful with the construction and the hospitality industry. And I hope what this lays the groundwork for is that they have policies, perhaps at first by executive order, but then by Congress, where we have work programs where for industries where people are needed, you have a legal process where people can come in for a certain time or whatever conditions, but we know who's here, and they're providing needed help in those industries.
Circling back to the top story on the Middle East, do you think the U.S. will ultimately join Israel in wiping out Iran's nuclear program?
I don't see how the president can back off from that now. I would be a little surprised if he waits the whole 2 weeks. Maybe he's hoping you get regime change inside Iran from the army or something, but they cannot allow Iran to have any nuclear capability, no enrichment whatsoever. And so I don't know about the timing, but if we don't take out that Fordo, facility, or the Israelis have to do it by sending in their own forces. That would be a blow against the U.S. because you don't send that many assets over there. You don't say unconditional surrender and then not do the job. So I just think it's a matter of days, but would hurt the credibility of the U.S. if we don't follow through, because Iran's determined to keep something in terms of their nuclear capability, no matter what they promise if there are ever negotiations. They've been lying to us for 40 years.
Steve Forbes, thank you very much for taking the call this afternoon, and we'll keep an open line to you on all of these epic developments here. Steve Forbes, chairman of Forbes Media, which includes Forbes Magazine, author of numerous books. His latest, Inflation, What It Is, Why It Is Bad, and How to Fix It, former Republican presidential candidate. Hope to see you out here back in Southern California at some point, Steve Forbes. We always greatly appreciate you joining us live here this afternoon and all of your appearances.
Maybe see a Dodger-Giant game, since the Giants got the best player in the Boston Red Sox. That who thought the Giants were going to be a competitor this year, but here we are.
You're right. I wish we had more time, but you're absolutely right. That is also big news, and thank you again very, very much. Let's talk about that sometime very, very soon.
Terrific. Thank you, Frank. Have a good one.
Thank you very much. That is the one and only Steve Forbes live with us here on 790 KBC.
Took a walk and past your house.
790 KBC welcomes Herman's Hermit, starring Peter Noon, with special guests the Grassroots and the Buckinghams, coming to the Pacific Amphitheater at the OC Fair on July 23rd. This is part of the Toyota Summer Concert Series. Tickets are on sale now at packamp.com. Right now, caller 9 wins. Call 1-888-790-5222. That's 888-790-5222. You can get a pair of tickets to the show if you're caller number 9. And all concert tickets, by the way, include admission to the OC Fair. Tickets furnished by the Pacific Amphitheater. Call now. Caller 9 wins. 1-888-790-5222. Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KBC. A mixed finish to the holiday shortened week on Wall Street. The Dow coming in for a closing gain today of 35 points. S&P 500 down 13. The NASDAQ down 99. The yield on the 10-year note now 4.38%. The volatility index moving higher today by 2%. Gold hovering at $3,384 and change. We see silver at $35.95, pulling back nearly $1 today. Platinum at $1,261.50. Oil at $75 a barrel in New York. Bitcoin right now at $103,140. Ethereum just shy of $2,400, and Doge at 16 cents. And now the latest news on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KBC. Following the latest developments in the Middle East, President Trump said today he will decide within 2 weeks whether the U.S. military will get directly involved in Israel's fighting with Iran to wipe out Iran's nuclear program. This a week after Israel launched strikes to wipe out Iran's nuclear program. All of this as the U.S. moves more military equipment in the direction of the Middle East. This as Iran warns about possible closure of the Strait of Hormuz and irreparable damage in case of a U.S. attack. President Trump asked Iran to unconditionally surrender this past week. Meanwhile, the head of the Israeli Defense Force said today that Israelis must prepare for a prolonged campaign against Iran to eliminate a threat of this magnitude. In his words, indicating that a quick end of the campaign was unlikely. Today, an Iranian missile hit the Israeli port city of Haifa. Following all these developments very closely, joining us live now is Middle East expert Lisa Dafchari, editor of the Foreign Desk. Lisa, thank you very much for taking the call this afternoon.
Of course, great to be with you.
Just a week ago, Israel launched the attacks to wipe out Iran's nuclear program. What's your reaction to the epic news that we've seen over the past week?
What a week, right? We've seen tremendous progress on the part of the Israelis, whose priority is to defang and dismantle the Islamic Republic's nuclear apparatus. And it seems as though they are looking and waiting to see if the United States will join in and participate in a joint effort to bring down the nuclear capabilities to zero. And that will include, obviously, the Fordo nuclear site, which is the 12th of the various nuclear facilities that the regime has built up in a very systematic and strategic way to deter this kind of attack, to prevent this kind of attack from wiping out its entire nuclear profile. In the meantime, we are seeing the Islamic Republic lob missiles into Israel daily. The various mechanisms Israel has in place to defend against ballistic missiles has not been 100%. We are seeing damage in hospitals and in places like Ramat Gan and Bat Yam.
Looking for a degree program that rewards you for what you already know? At WGU, all of our bachelor's and master's programs are competency-based, allowing you to progress at your own pace. Washingtonians know how valuable time and money are, and so do we. At WGU, your hard work and experience can help you finish your degree faster and for less. Join a community of driven professionals from across the DMV who are unlocking new career opportunities today. See how your knowledge can give you an edge at wgu.edu.
Expert entrepreneur Ed Milet is on a mission to max out your life.
We're throwing open the metaphorical closet doors of our lives. We're going to be cleaning out the closet. What no longer fits? Audit some of your relationships. How about auditing your emotions? Maybe it's your career you need to look at. Get your life together for this season.
The Ed Milet Show.
It's time for a little cleaning of the soul. Let's get a little ruthless, a little refreshing, and a little real. God bless you, everyone.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
And now in Haifa as well.
On there live with Lisa Dafchari. Israel, of course, is striking military targets, while Iran, as you noted, hitting civilian targets, including that Israeli hospital with cluster bombs, and very, very serious developments here. And what is the likelihood, you think, of the U.S. going in and helping Israel completely wipe out the nuclear program?
I think the probability is high. I think the probability is high because we've seen a lot of pivoting from Donald Trump, and he says within 2 weeks, but that could mean within 2 hours. I think Donald Trump has a similar goal as Israel. When he says they cannot have a nuclear weapon, it really leads us to one conclusion. When the mullahs are not willing to surrender, when they're not willing to come to the negotiating table, we should be thankful for that because they wouldn't keep a deal anyway. When they're not willing and they won't concede, well, it leads us to one conclusion, and that is that they have to be taken out by force. And when Donald Trump sees that Israel is winning, he likes winning. So he has pivoted quite a bit over the last week to say that Israel's doing a fine job. Why not allow them to continue with what they are doing? Look, for all those who talk about this leading the United States into World War III, talking about how this is boots on the ground, this is none of that. Not all campaigns are the same. Not every Middle Eastern country is the same. Iran is not Afghanistan. Iran is not Iraq. Iran is not Syria or Libya. So this can be something that can work in a very coordinated way to just take out that one last site. We have to remember, if we leave any residual, the Iran regime will pause and rebuild, and all the efforts that we have seen so far by the Israeli government will have been in vain, allowing the regime to go back to nuclear capability.
And as we've seen in other Persian Gulf wars, the Strait of Hormuz, the focus of attention certainly in the financial markets. If that critical strait is shut down, it could cause a spike in oil prices and other reactions in the financial markets. What are your thoughts about that possibility, and what could happen?
Right, that's always on the table, but we've seen, a lot of desperation from the Iran regime, but we've also seen them be quite isolated. We haven't seen Russia or China come to their aid. We haven't even seen their pet project Hezbollah, who they gifted 150,000 missiles to, even come to their aid with one missile or any sort of defense mechanism. I don't think that the regime has the goal to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. We have to remember that this regime wants to stay in power. They are not suicidal. They're not looking to escalate despite the bluster that we are seeing. The bluster will remain, Khamenei's tweets on X and their ability to reject Donald Trump's invitations to nuclear negotiations. But other than that, I think it's going to a lot of talk and a desire for this not to escalate.
And all of this, of course, following the Hamas terror attack on Israel back on October 7, 2023. And then the Wall Street Journal the next day laid out Iran's role in all of this. So now there's hell to be paid here.
Absolutely, and I keep making the point to remind Americans that this is not just Israel's war. This is not a charity project for our ally Israel. This is America's war as well. We do have skin in the game. You know, the Iran regime has American blood on its hands for decades. They have terrorized us and our assets in the region. They have killed Americans. They have targeted our embassies. They have exported their own revolution into South America at the footbed of America. And that's just one side of it. That's the military side. When we talk about the propaganda campaigns that they have launched on American soil, when you talk about the college encampments that they supported, you talk about the infiltration, their lobbies going into the White House, K through 12 education, infiltration, all sorts of propaganda, political warfare campaigns that have been launched here in the United States. There's every reason that the United States does have skin in this game. The Iran regime remains a core national security issue for us and not just our ally Israel. So if we can, with a targeted strike, put an end to this threat once and for all, we would be putting America first, we would be putting our ally Israel first, and we would be putting the Iranian people first, who may have a chance at a better future because of this campaign. The entire Middle East is waiting to see if this could be a possibility. You look at the Persian Gulf Arab states that are very much hoping to that the Iran regime becomes dismantled. It's incredible to watch. There is not one good reason that this regime should stay in place, not one good reason that this regime should have nuclear weapons. And, the entire world will be a better place, more stable.
Looking for a degree program that rewards you for what you already know? At WGU, all of our bachelor's and master's programs are competency-based, allowing you to progress at your own pace. Washingtonians know how valuable time and money are, and so do we. At WGU, your hard work and experience can help you finish your degree faster and for less. Join a community of driven professionals from across the DMV who are unlocking new career opportunities today. See how your knowledge can give you an edge at wgu.edu.
The United States Soccer Federation presents the U.S. Soccer Podcast.
Inside the opening 45 seconds. What a goal! Jack McGlynn with that cannon of a left foot.
Never miss a game.
What a start for the United States.
Shot from distance. What a goal!
Never miss a moment.
Exquisite from the San Diegan. Can he finish? Yes, he can! Yeah!
The U.S. Soccer Podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
More free, and the Iranian people could have a chance at freedom for once and for all.
Lisa Dobchar, we'll keep an open line to you on so many fast-breaking developments and follow your coverage at the Foreign Desk. Thank you very much for taking the call live with us here. That is Middle East expert Lisa Dobchar, editor of the Foreign Desk, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues, 790 KBC. Good afternoon. Nervous times at the gas pumps and in the auto business, too. A recent study suggests California gas prices could potentially hit $8 a gallon by the end of next year, maybe sooner, given what's happening in the Middle East and the potential spike in the price of oil. In the meantime, we're looking at the national average gas price, $3.22 a gallon. Right now, $4.05 the average national gas price for premium. Here in Los Angeles, of course, we're paying the highest. $4.64 is the average price for regular. In the LA area, $5.03 now, the average price for premium. Nervous times in the auto business, too, over tariffs. Let's bring in Lauren Fix now, editor-in-chief of Car Coach and the host of the Total Car Score podcast. Lauren, thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon. First of all, everybody's talking about nervousness over gas prices. First of all, what is your expectation here?
Well, we do know that Governor Gavin Newsom had secretly planned to increase the taxes that were on per gallons of gasoline. And part of it's funny the way it was presented. It was hidden so that we wouldn't know about it until it passed. And the rules and the way they do things, it probably wasn't done legally, but legislators are fighting back. They're going to put 65 cents a gallon on immediately right off at the top. Plus, we've got 2 refineries that are shutting down. Then it's not just affecting LA, it's affecting the whole state. And because California ships gas to Oregon, Washington State, Arizona, Nevada, they're also going to be impacted. Not as badly as California, but they're looking at 65 cents a gallon increase starting July 1st. That projection could go up to 85 cents a gallon by 2030, $1.50 a gallon by 2035, and that's based on the way that they wrote this unusually written, secret, shall we say, taxes that goes to everybody. And so why would he do that? Obviously there's money supposed to go to roads and bridges. It isn't. It's not just California, New York, where I live, and other states. The roads are in terrible shape. The bridges are in terrible shape. I have a study on the bridges that I just posted on my Car Coach Reports channel, and there's some serious potential damage that could happen to someone crossing some of these bridges because they're not getting the funds needed to keep on top of the maintenance. And the problem is we drive across them every day and don't know until there's a problem. So that's the story they could be using, but it looks like really it's a pushback because of the electric vehicle mandate going away under President Trump. That was signed into law. They are attempting to sue to have it put back in, but it will not happen because it was a Congressional Review Act. So it almost looks like this is a payback because it wasn't revealed to consumers or anybody that this tax was going into play until after the president signed the Congressional Review Act and taking away all of the mandates from California going all electric.
That is heartbreaking, and considering the fact that California is swimming in oil here, 100 years ago, California accounted for 25% of the world's oil production. And if you go to the La Brea tar pits, you'll see that big pit there of tar, but it's actually oil bubbling up to the surface here. So we're actually swimming in oil and paying the highest in America here. And now possibly facing another spike in gas prices. That is absolutely heartbreaking for consumers. And what about the EV mandate being rolled back? What kind of reaction are you seeing in the car business?
Well, actually, car manufacturers are very happy. They're kind of being held hostage by the government. So whoever's in power at the time will say that we want these rules and regulations. And although they have lobbyists and although they put money into lawyers, they can fight some of it. But they typically end up figuring out how to work together. So what we're noticing is a few things. First off, the corporate average fuel economy, Sean Duffy and Lee Zeldin are working together. That's EPA and the Department of Transportation are working together to remove that mandate. So in other words, you may want a 53 miles a gallon car. You could buy one. You could buy a Toyota Prius today and get that. But what they're trying to do is take away the mandate, because what it does, it makes car manufacturers think, how are we going to make this average of all the vehicles we sell? And it may be easy for a company like Honda that they only sell a Ridgeline, but mostly they sell cars, versus a company like Ford or General Motors where they sell a lot of trucks. So they have to offset that, which means they got to make the cars smaller. They have to make them lighter. And in my opinion, it can make them less safe when you've got big trucks on the road. You want to have a safe vehicle. Yes, they have airbags. Yes, they have all the safety. But still, when you're thinking about the vehicles as themselves, you want them to be as safe as possible and that be a little larger rather than a little smaller. So these are some of the things that car manufacturers have been watching. We've got a lot of regulations that are still trying to get passed. Some of it will go across in the big, beautiful bill, as President Trump calls it, which includes the removal of the $7,500 tax credit, which would be gone by the end of the year, still giving you a chance if you want to purchase an EV, you can. There's plenty of those on lots and plenty of deals. Nobody should be paying window sticker on any electric car. And car manufacturers take a loss on every single one, and they'd be thrilled not to make them any longer. And as far as Tesla, it doesn't make a difference if he has the $7,500 tax credit or not. That Elon Musk doesn't care because he owns 66% of the market. And if you want a Tesla, you can buy one at any time. And the tax credit doesn't mean anything because you have to make enough money to offset that tax credit. I think that's what people don't really realize. It's not a check to you or a discount off the price. It's based on your federal taxes owed.
That's an important point. What about tariffs and the ongoing uncertainty over what's happening in the car business and what ultimately consumers will pay?
Well, right now we're looking at about 2.5 million cars still available pre-tariff because sales were down. So if you're looking for a vehicle now and that's new, now is better to purchase one than later. Used car prices are up about 6% so far for the year. That's a lot. Typically they would be softer, and because the prices are higher, people are sort of torn between, do I get a new car, do I get a used car, pay a higher price, or do I just wait? If you can wait, I highly recommend you wait till later in the year.
Terrific, Lauren. Thank you very much for that important update. Lauren Fix, Editor-in-Chief of Car Coach and the host of the Total Car Score podcast, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang. I'll be back with more at 4 Monday afternoon right here. Mottek On Money, 790 KBC.
Former U.S. Navy SEAL Sean Ryan captures real stories about sacrifice and strength.
We go into this hooch searching for Christ knows what.
Regardless if anybody else does it, will you do it?
There's a lot of things that are hurtful and disturbing.
Can't get anybody to talk about it.
Uncovering truth with the heroes who live to tell it.
There's a saying, there's no atheist in a foxhole.
That was the hardest part for you coming home.
What?
How'd you get through it?
I worked hard.
The Sean Ryan Show.
You ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.